back to Maine Luxury Auto Barn, everybody. My name is Alex Roulard, and today I'm going to be starting a video series on how to maintain your BMWs properly. So this series is going to be broken up, like I said, into a bunch of videos. This first video is just going to be the layout of the maintenance plan that I have come up with, and then the other videos will be each individual service, going into great detail on that service itself. And I figured I'd break it up like this just so that you're not sitting in front of the screen watching about BMW maintenance for 2 to 3 hours, because that would probably get pretty boring. So hopefully this is a little bit easier to digest, and we can get through all these. I really hope that everybody watches all these. If you own a BMW, maybe you'll know all the information in the video already, but maybe you won't. Maybe you'll learn something new, or even better yet, maybe you'll be able to put a comment in there if you know something that I don't know. Because I am always trying to learn new things as well. So just to give a background on myself, just so that you know who I am and that the information I'm giving comes from experience, not just something I read online. I started my career many years ago. I went to the BMW STEP program, which is basically BMW's little university. Graduated as a BMW Master Tech. Continued to work as a Master Tech for the next 11 years at the dealership, going to training every single year to maintain my Master Tech status, and then decided after 11 years to branch off on my own and start my own BMW specialty shop, which is Maine Luxury Auto Barn. So I've been here for a little over 7 years with my business, and that has really, honestly, the last 7 years has really given me the ability to make a service plan that works and actually keeps these BMWs as reliable as possible. So when I was at the dealership, BMW went through a couple different types of service plans. They started off with their basic oil service inspection 1, inspection 2 plan, which was kind of like little individual tune-ups that the technician got a check sheet, and they went down through the check sheet, did the services and checks on the vehicle. Then they migrated to what they call condition-based service. It's basically the car using all the sensors and computers to monitor how you drive the car to determine when each service is due. So I'm not going to go into detail on that, but it uses a lot of different variables like acceleration, deceleration, how long you drive, how short your trips are, how long you're stopped in traffic, all those things to calculate those services. Kind of a flawed system. There was definitely times where we had to go in and correct the computer system because it would say services are due before they actually were. So that, in my mind, was not the greatest service plan, although it was very nice that the cars let people know when most of the services were due. So, and now that I've been able to own my own shop, I've been able to take those plans that BMW laid out and then take what I'm seeing in the real world as we're doing repairs. As we're pulling valve covers off and looking at the condition of the camshafts, as we're pulling oil pans off and looking at the condition of everything we can see down there, the oil pump, the crankshaft, the pistons, everything we can possibly see, to look at the condition of how things are wearing when you service a car a certain way. I've been able to take all that information and create my own service plan that's very similar to BMW's, but it's tweaked a little bit so that we can make these things as reliable as possible for our customers. Our number one goal with maintenance is to make sure that your car doesn't end up on a tow truck. Now, can we prevent that 100%? No. But can we do a really good job at eliminating most of it? Yes, we really can. So this plan, again, has been years in the making, and it's not over yet. We are constantly evolving this plan. Just recently, actually, it was actually recently since COVID, I think, I heard some information on they had to use different clutch materials in like transmissions and transfer cases. And we have noticed that some of those like 2021, 2022 model range transfer cases are starting to develop transfer case shutter. We're not 100% sure what's going on, but we have found that by doing a transfer case service that we can actually eliminate that problem. But this is a problem that's arising around 55 to 60,000 miles. So we may end up tweaking our transfer case service time interval or mileage interval on those cars specifically, so that we can prevent our customers from having that issue. But that's what I mean by this is constantly evolving. It's not going to be a set in stone service plan. As these engines change and evolve, we may have to tweak these services as well. So, all right, so let's dive right in. Let's get into these services. Again, I'm not going to explain the services or why they're due at that time. I'm just going to list them off and when they're due, and then everything else will be on the individual service videos. Starting right off, we're going to go right into the oil service. This is due every 7,500 miles if you are under 100,000 miles. Once you breach that 100,000 mile mark, we recommend dropping that back down to around 6,000 miles. In conjunction with the oil change, you really always should be doing a tire rotation. I would highly recommend doing a tire rotation and balance. And then you would do those multiple times, and then you would end up at your 30,000 mile service. Now the 30,000 mile service is kind of that first small tune-up. You're going to be replacing the engine air filter, cabin filter, and some of the newer BMWs have a recirculation cabin filter. And then also we do what we call a vehicle check. Now vehicle check is kind of a service BMW came up with the CBS data program. And it's basically a moderately in-depth inspection on the vehicle's reliability and safety systems. And it's actually a really very important inspection to be doing. It can help prevent a lot of problems that can arise with these BMWs. So highly recommend doing your vehicle checks. From there, we move on to kind of your bigger tune-up, and now this is going to be your 60,000 mile service. Again, we would repeat the 30,000 mile service. So engine air filter, cabin filters, vehicle check. We would also add on to that the spark plugs. Your differential services, so front differential if you have it, and the rear differential. If you have power steering fluid, hydraulic power steering fluid, that would be serviced as well. A lot of BMWs have now switched to electric power steering, so most modern day BMWs, you won't have to worry about that. And then a fuel filter if you have a replaceable fuel filter. Now if you have a diesel, I consider diesels kind of a specialty vehicle because there's really not that many of them compared to the gasoline engine BMWs. But if you have a diesel, every 3 oil changes, which comes out to about anywhere from 20,000 to 30,000 miles, that's when you would be doing your fuel filter on a diesel. Those get changed much more regularly. So, and those are super important to change. You definitely 100% will run into drivability issues if you do not replace those. So, but moving on from the 60,000 mile service, brings us right up to the 100,000 mile service. Now 100,000 miles, we would be doing the transmission service and transfer case service. These are bigger, more expensive services, but again, you only have to do them every 100,000 miles. So I know BMW says that their transmission and transfer case fluids are technically lifetime, but what we're finding is that if you don't service them, you do run into issues. And also around that 100 to 120,000 mile mark, the car will actually set fault codes saying that the transmission and transfer case fluid are worn and need to be replaced. So even though BMW says that it is lifetime fluid, the car will actually tell you that it is not and that it needs to be serviced. So we highly recommend doing those at 100,000 miles to prevent any problems. Moving on from there, we go right into time-based services. Now time-based services basically are just not connected to mileage. They are either a fluid or a part that degrades over time and needs to be serviced at a certain time interval. So starting right off with the most frequent one, that is the brake fluid flush. Brake fluid should be flushed every 2 years. And following up with that is the coolant flush every 4 years. And then basically, I know I said that the cabin filter, air filter are mileage based, which they are. But if you live in an extreme climate where there's a lot of dust, maybe you live like out in a desert type area where there's sandstorms or dust storms, or you live in a place where there's a lot of humidity, or you drive down a lot of dirt roads, these are places where you might want to consult your local specialist and ask them, is there a time when I should be replacing these filters instead of a mileage? because they're going to get clogged a lot faster than they would here in the state of Maine, which just has a very basic temperate climate. So highly recommend contacting a local specialist on those. They may say you want to do them every month, every 6 months, maybe every year. Really depends on where you live and where you drive. The only other time-based services that I would say are a pretty regular thing are cars that don't get driven in the winter. So if you have a seasonal car like an M car, or you have a race car, or you have a convertible that you store throughout the winter, those cars I would say should get at least 2 services per year. And one service is right before it goes into storage. That's when I would recommend changing your oil and making sure you pump up your tires and other pre-storage checks. And then when you pull it out of storage, we don't need to go ahead and replace these filters, but I would highly recommend a service where the air filter, cabin filter get removed to make sure that no rodents got into those boxes. And then also a basic overall vehicle inspection to, again, make sure that the rodents haven't gone in there and caused any problems. And also just to get the car ready to be driven, making sure the tire pressures and all that kind of stuff are good to go for the summer. So that, again, is a time-based service, which will really change on how long into fall you drive your seasonal vehicle. So I can't give you an exact time, but those can be determined on an individual basis with your local specialist. Other than that, we won't go into any type of hybrid vehicle servicing or anything like that where you have these special intervals and the car needs to tell you when the services are due because the engines don't run as much. So those we will leave for a separate video. And that is basically the service plan that we have come up with that works phenomenal. And we've had absolutely great results with it. And people that follow this plan, I would say almost never show up on a tow truck for any type of issue in any of these drivetrain components. So, and then we've even been able to pre-solve a lot of upcoming issues with the vehicle checks. So highly recommend watching that video so we can let you know what's involved in that inspection. And again, hit the notification button, subscribe, and then when the other videos come out on each individual service, you'll be notified and you can jump on and watch those individual services. We would love to have comments. If you guys want to comment on, if you agree or disagree, if you're in one of those dusty climate areas and you have information on when your specialist recommends that those services are due, I'd love to hear what they recommend. Again, we live in Maine. It's a pretty temperate climate. There's mainly in my area, it's all paved roads. Up north, there's a lot of dirt roads, but our customers tend to have a very basic overall inspection needs. We're not in what I would call like a really severe extreme climate one way or the other. So feel free again to leave comments on this video, watch the other videos, and we will see you next time.